Hi everyone, it's Tammy Meeks and I'm here to present my research proposal, which is related to nurse-to-patient ratio staffing models and the impact on staff retention and nurse satisfaction. A little bit of a background. The purpose is to provide data that supports best practice with regards to staffing models and staffing retention and satisfaction. According to Lake, an environment where nurses can utilize their skills while working with a multidisciplinary team while having access to resources required to provide quality patient-centered care is what is considered a supportive work environment. Nursing makes up 40% of the healthcare personnel, so it would make sense that we would want to provide an emphasis or place an emphasis on providing a supportive work environment. In the organization where I work, staffing is determined based on a nurse-to-patient ratio grid. So there are a couple of challenges with that. As you all know, workload or acuity of any given patient can be completely different on any given day. The second challenge within my organization is that each unit has a specific number of patients that they are budgeted for, and that's based on hours per patient day. So, for example, in the intensive care unit, we're budgeted for 10 patients, but we have 16 beds. So we continue to take patients as long as we have beds. So not only is the patient ratio a challenge, but then when you add additional patients onto that already maxed workload, there are additional challenges. So the purpose of this is to find out what's best practice. As patients become more challenging and acuity increases, guidelines need to be established to account for the increased work demand. The hypothesis is, if nurses become overwhelmed or burned out, the quality of care is going to decrease. Patients are sicker than they have ever been. So right now, there's a knowledge gap related to nurse-to-patient ratios and the impact that it has on staff retention and satisfaction. So again, just to reiterate, the research question is, do nurse-to-patient ratio staffing models affect staff retention and satisfaction as opposed to different staffing models? The study design is going to be correlational, which is obvious how the staffing model correlates with retention and satisfaction. The framework that I'm utilizing is the synergy model, which as we have learned in the past, it matches nurse competencies with patient characteristics. Review of the literature. When I was doing a review of the literature, I used keywords such as staffing models, a supportive work environment, and nurse satisfaction. And the same theme kept surfacing, and that was nurse-to-patient ratio staffing is an important contributing factor to negative nursing outcomes such as burnout, injuries, and retention. And according to AACN, efficient staffing models have the potential to improve nurse and patient satisfaction. So the sample setting, data collection, and rationale. So for my proposed research study, I am proposing to use 3 medical surgical units in my organization. It'll be a natural setting. There won't be any manipulation of the environment. The data is going to be collected through a survey monkey, and the survey will consist of demographic questions and questions related to the research question. There was enough significant literature from the research to suggest that higher nurse-to-patient ratios have a negative impact on nurse satisfaction and retention. So my goal is twofold, and is to provide evidence of the above and also to develop an evidence-based strategies to develop a staffing model that meets the needs of the patients and the staff. Design, population, procedure, and instruments. The research methodology will be a non-interventional quantitative study. And this type of research describes variables as they exist, sometimes examining the relationship or association between variables. So, and that's the goal, is to establish the correlation or relationship between that particular staffing model and nurse satisfaction and retention. The population will again be the nurses that work on the 3 different medical surgical units. They have to have worked in the organization at least 6 months at the bedside. The study will be conducted over a 3-month period, and the Likert scale will be used to measure the responses. Analysis of the data. So the Shapiro-Wilk test will be used to determine the suitability of the data for parametric statistics. I will plan to use the regression analysis for prediction statistics. The independent variable will be the nurse-to-patient ratio staffing, and then the dependent variables will be nurse satisfaction and retention. And then I plan to use a simple linear regression that will be used to explain the association. So it'll be a scatter plot, and then a line will be drawn through the data. Limitations of this study: there's a potential for external validity limitation because the sample population is indicative of the nurses in my particular organization. And there's also a potential for statistic validity limitation related to the sample size, because the sample population is the nurses on those 3 specific units, but the participation is going to be voluntary. So it'll be dependent upon how many volunteers I have for the study. Implications. We all know that the world of healthcare is ever changing, and it is moving away from payment based on volume and transitioning to a value-based system that incentivizes quality. So staffing model and staffing decisions are key components, with bedside nursing being an integral part. So the research indicates that improved patient outcomes and staff satisfaction are based on matching the right number of nurses and their competencies and with patient characteristics. So that's what the data is showing from what I have collected. Further research may be required to determine the best practice regarding the best specific staffing model. Sorry, guys. Recommendations for practice and further study. Further studies could be beneficial in identifying specific staffing models based on evidence-based practice that work more efficiently to improve patient care and nurse satisfaction and retention. Conclusion. So I utilized the Stetler model of research utilization because I felt like it really fit with my particular study. And there's several different phases: preparation, validation, comparative evaluation and decision making, translation and application, and evaluation. So based on the predicted results of the study, as I said earlier, further studies are warranted. Research based on best practice staffing models would be beneficial. Thank you so much for listening, and it was great being in class with all of you.